myself, the Regents, and my priorities for what I want to accomplish as a Regent. And then I'd love to open it up for some questions. I'll probably take 5 to 7 minutes to present, and then we can take the rest of the time for Q&A. So I'm Elliott Hood. I'm running for CU Regent at large. And if those of you who don't know what the CU Regents are, that's okay. A lot of people don't know what it is. And when I told one of my best friends, in fact, who went to CU with me, that I was running for CU Regent, he said, "Elliott, that's amazing. What the heck is that?" So the CU Regents are the governing board of the University of Colorado system. And the University of Colorado system is the 4 campuses of Boulder, Denver, Colorado Springs, and the Anschutz Medical Campus in Denver. It is a massive enterprise. It's the 3rd largest employer in the state of Colorado, has a $6 billion annual budget. And some estimates say that CU has anywhere between a $13 and a $15 billion annual impact on our economy. The CU Regents specifically are in charge of the budget, number 1. Number 2, they oversee the administration and hold them accountable for all of the goals that they set for themselves and the Regents set for them. They have final decision-making on tenure, and they also enact all policy and laws that apply across the university system. And I'll talk in a few minutes about some of the policies that I'm very interested in tackling when I'm on the Board of Regents. But it's kind of like a school board, but for the University of Colorado, which is by far the largest higher ed institution in our state. We serve on an annual basis 67,000 students. No other enterprise comes close to that. So my background is I'm a CU grad. I went to the University of Colorado Boulder undergrad. I was a public school teacher in Las Vegas, Nevada, a unionized public school teacher, I might add. I taught 5th grade. My kids were, almost all of them were first-generation Americans. My school was nearly all qualified for free and reduced lunch. And none of the parents of my kids had ever gone to college. But one of the things that I always preached to them was finishing your high school degree, getting your education, and then pursuing post-secondary opportunities if that's what they wanted to do. And I just loved seeing their eyes light up when I would plaster in my classroom walls with pictures of beautiful college campuses. And they were 10 years old, living in Las Vegas, but you could see that they really, that really planted a seed for them to go to college or to pursue post-secondary opportunities someday. And I still feel a strong sense of obligation and duty to make sure that students like that, that I taught, have the opportunities that I promised them that they could have if they worked hard and wanted to go to college. I'm currently an attorney. Kathy and I do the same thing. We're school attorneys. And I'm a partner at Kaplan & Ernest, which is the largest largest firm in Colorado that does education law. I represent public school districts across the state of Colorado, from very small districts on the Eastern Plains and Western Slope to the largest metro area districts like Arapahoe Public Schools, Cherry Creek, Boulder Valley, Jeffco, and Denver Public Schools, you name it. I'm a litigator like Kathy, so I go to court for our schools, and I handle a variety of different matters, from special education to employment law to charter school appeals that you just heard all about, and other matters. And it's been a real privilege for me to represent public schools in my job as a lawyer. And just to give you a couple examples of cases that I've handled, Kathy mentioned one of them where the Ascent Classical Academy applied to be a charter school in Boulder, and the BVSD board rejected that application, and we prevailed in that at the state board. I've represented districts defending their anti-racism policies, their gender inclusion policies from right-wing plaintiffs who believe that that has no place in our public schools, and we have successfully convinced the judges in those cases that no, indeed, that is essential to our public schools and the idea of inclusion in our schools. I also handled a very high-profile pandemic-era litigation a couple of years ago on behalf of Douglas County Schools, where in response to a public health order from the newly created sham Douglas County Board of Health that said that the school district was not allowed to require people to wear masks or quarantine people that had been knowingly exposed to COVID. And the school district came to me and said, this is a big problem. This was in the middle of the pandemic during the Delta variant, which was so deadly. And we determined that that ordinance or that order was discriminatory because it essentially meant that our students and staff with disabilities and pre-existing health conditions who were more susceptible to getting COVID or getting really sick if they got COVID, they were basically forced between the Hobson's choice of sending their kids to school and having their kids potentially getting sick with COVID or keeping their kids home and robbing them of their educational rights. And we filed a federal lawsuit against the Douglas County Board of Health. I represented 9 families with students with disabilities and the school district, and we won that case. The county capitulated, and then they changed their order so it didn't apply to the school district. And we got our attorney fees, by the way, which were a sizable chunk. So not only did we win in court, they had to pay us as well. In addition to my law practice, I also have served on several public boards. I was previously the vice chair of a state commission on disability access, and I'm currently the vice chair of the Boulder Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and I will soon be the chair of that as well. So the enterprise of board governance is very familiar to me between my job advising boards as a lawyer, but also serving on boards as well. So being a regent would be it would certainly be a job that I know and understand, at least the idea of board governance. So if I'm elected regent, my big priorities are going to be, number one, let's keep CU as affordable and accessible as possible for all of our qualified scholars that want to go to the University of Colorado. Let's make sure that everybody who can qualify to go to our school can afford to go, can get a great education when they're there, and then they are supported enough where they graduate within 4 years, hopefully, and are not shackled with debt for the rest of their life. Number two, let's protect academic freedom so we don't end up like Florida and Texas and Oklahoma and other states where politicians are starting to dictate what people can learn and study and research solely to pursue a partisan political agenda. I believe that fundamentally undermines exactly what people go to college to do, is to pursue knowledge. And if we are taking away majors and programming based on politics, we're not letting people pursue knowledge. We're indoctrinating them to think certain things based on our political beliefs, and that has no place in higher ed. And if I'm elected to the Board of Regents, I'm going to be a protector of academic freedom. 3, you can carry a gun to class right now at CU. We allow concealed carry at the University of Colorado, which means that you can carry a gun to class if you're a teacher or a student or just a visitor, and no one can make you go away or put your gun away. I think that's wrong. I think that's dangerous. I think that it's completely unnecessary, and it's also massively disruptive to the educational setting. I've talked to so many students and faculty who fear for their safety in class because they know that students come in with guns. They've seen people with guns in class, and it's very distracting for them to know that that's happening. And you don't need a gun to go to class. I fully respect people's Second Amendment rights to have a gun in their home and protect themselves and their family if that's what they believe is necessary, but you don't need a gun to go to class. And as a lawyer, I'm going to be positioned to advocate as a board member for the position that we can ban concealed carry without running afoul of the Second Amendment, of course, in consultation with our university council, which I think will be a real benefit to have somebody who understands constitutional law on the Board of Regents. And finally, I want to make sure that we're pushing the university on climate, protecting our environment, and conserving water. Those are existential crises that we need to face. The University of Colorado is a massive user of energy and water, and we need to do better. Our planet really does depend on it. There are a lot of other priorities that I have that I could talk ad nauseum about, like promoting DEI and others, but I'll just end with this. Amazingly, this is top of the ticket next year behind president, which means that there is no other statewide race on the ballot besides president and CU Regent at large, which means that you folks will have the great privilege of voting for Joe Biden, #1, and Elliott Hood, #2 on your ballot next year. And I'm happy to take your questions.
I am not seeing anybody asking a question. Well, I had one for you. So, we're so early in the stage here, with an election this Tuesday, and then you too are the first 2024 candidates that we've had come to LAD. So there's moving parts and stuff. I forgot to ask Kathy if she's got a challenger. Do you have, is there somebody else running for the seat as well?
Not to my knowledge, not yet.
Okay. And then Elliott, is somebody running for yours for this seat?
Yes. I have, there are 3 additional people, 2 of whom are not viable candidates. The 2 people who are not viable are, I think, either seniors or recent college grads from the University of Colorado who have not been able to raise any money or get endorsements. And I think, I'm not sure why they've filed, but they haven't really made any waves in the race. And they actually just filed fairly recently. So the other person who's running, who I think is a viable candidate and someone that I like, his name is Charles Johnson. He is from Denver. He used to play football for CU, and he currently works at Ball Corporation. And he was recruited to run for the Regents, this at-large seat by Wanda James, who is the Denver Regent. He's a very nice guy, and I encourage you to talk to him as well. I'll just say that I think that I have the education background and legal background that I think this board needs right now. And I look forward to the discussion in the primary with Charles about, ensuring that we have the best leadership possible on the University of Colorado's Board of Regents.
Well, thank you for your answer. I really appreciate that. I think Beth and Stan were up. Okay, so do you guys want to ask your question?
Yeah, Elliott, I do appreciate your values and your goals. I wonder if you can give us an idea of the mood, if that's the right word, of current members of the board to accomplish these things.
Yeah, that's a great question. So kind of running through the list of priorities that I have in terms of affordability and access, I think that there is broad bipartisan support for keeping tuition in check, meaning not raising it annually above inflation, ensuring that we have access points for people to come to the University of Colorado and ensure that they can afford to go there and stay there. I think there are some differences on how we prioritize where we spend our dollars. I think the Democrats are aligned around making tuition more affordable and costs lower for students of color and first-generation students and students from low-income backgrounds, I think more than the Republican members of the Regents are. But I think that there is, generally speaking, a broad coalition of keeping costs as low as possible and keeping the university as accessible as possible. On the issue of academic freedom, the Republicans on the Board of Regents have already tried to invade academic freedom multiple times. And when Heidi Ganahl was the at-large regent before she ran for governor, she tried to propose a resolution that would have eradicated any kind of equity-related programming on campus. And we've seen some other episodes in recent history of some of the Republicans on the board who have expressed an interest in getting a little bit into the weeds and meddling in curriculum decisions for what kind of majors are being offered on our campuses. So I think that the Democrats are largely aligned around let's keep academic freedom in place. Let's not have the regents making curriculum choices. But I can't quite say that for the Republicans. And then on the guns issue, all of the Republicans oppose banning concealed carry. And actually from what I understand, one of the Democrats also opposes it. But that said, the issue has not come up for a vote. And sometimes, as Kathy knows, you have to bring things up for a vote and force people to take a position. If I'm elected to the Board of Regents, it is going to be one of my priorities to take this up for a vote so that we actually can force the issue and ensure that everybody is on the record as saying how they feel about that issue. And I believe that if that happens, that we will ban concealed carry. There will be a majority vote for that.
Thank you. Okay, Sherry?
Yeah, that's perfect timing, because that's what I wanted to circle back on, was your bold and brave and value-based stance on concealed carry. I mean, I remember when it came up, trying to push back on that. And you said there was one Democrat who is also opposed. How about the other people running for this seat? Where are they at on that? And are you concerned about the gun lobby, targeting you, on that in terms of funding? And then please talk about how we can help you on that end in terms of, countering some of that. So.
Sure. I anticipate that the gun lobby will spend money on this race, given my position, and I intend to be the Democratic nominee. So I expect that in the general election, they will be spending money against my candidacy. So it is so critical that everybody shows up and supports the Democratic candidate, who I presume will be me, but whoever that is, we need to make sure that this seat stays blue. In terms of my opponents in this race, or I would say my teammates and kind of running this race, I don't know where they stand. If you go onto Charles Johnson's website, it doesn't say anything about concealed carry. So I'd be interested to know his position on that. And I haven't had a chance to talk with him about his position there. But I believe this is the right thing to do. And the gun lobby has been on the wrong side of history over and over and over again in rejecting sensible gun restrictions. And I believe that it is time to take action and do the right thing and do what we can that is lawful and within our control. And I believe that banning concealed carry is all of those things at CU.
Amy, you're next.
Okay. Hi, Elliott.
Hey.
I was wondering a couple things. One, do we support a disproportionate amount of students coming in from out of state because we charge so much more for out of state tuition? And then my other question has to do with CU South. And what is your position on all the CU South issues that are happening here in Boulder County?
Yep. Let me address, I'm just writing that down. So let me address the out-of-state student question first. So by state law, CU is not allowed to have any of the campuses, Boulder in particular, which is really where the pressure is for out-of-state students, because it has by far the largest chunk of out-of-state students. By state law, we can't have more than 50% of our student body come from out of state. So there is actually a law in place that precludes us from lifting that cap just as a university. And because of Tabor, and everybody here is very familiar with that irrational tax policy, because of that, CU Boulder in particular relies pretty heavily on out-of-state tuition dollars in order to fund our programming and actually make college accessible for in-state students who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to go to CU. And so I believe that the current balance is acceptable. It's, I think, close to 50%, but not quite there. I think it's in the 48, 49% range for out of state. But I still believe this is our state's flagship university. We should ensure that we are continuing to prioritize Colorado students, people who come from Colorado high schools and who grow up here, or who move here in high school and are in-state students here. So I would not be in favor of lifting that cap necessarily, to allow more out-of-state students to come in, just so that we can charge more money and use that money for our programming. And then on CU South, I have very mixed feelings about CU South. So I used to live adjacent to the property. And I was very active with the city in lobbying for what I would consider to be very reasonable terms that I wanted, or we wanted as a neighborhood, included in the annexation agreement if that went through. And I'm happy to say that all of those terms that we requested were included in the annexation agreement. At the same time, I love that space, and I used to take my little kids for walks on those trails, and it really saddens me that the university wants to develop that. But at the end of the day, that land, which used to be a gravel mine in the mid-90s when the university bought it, it's the university's land. And the university certainly had a sign up for, as far as I can remember, that said that this was a place that we are going to develop eventually. I just want to make sure that the university stays true to its promises that it made in the annexation agreement. I want to make sure that the university is not rushing to develop that space, ensures that it develops it responsibly, to protect the environment, to ensure that we're legitimately and reasonably helping our city housing goals, our climate goals, that we're working with the city to ensure that we're creating more bike access in and around that property, multimodal transportation opportunities, fixing the mess that is the Southeast Boulder infrastructure. I see that all of that is something that we can partner with the city to do. Even if I wanted to go onto the board and get rid of CU South, I wouldn't have the votes to do it. So I think that the best thing that I can do as a regent is to hold the parties accountable for the promises they made. And as a resident of Southeast Boulder, I think that I'm uniquely positioned to fight for the city's interests and the interests of the citizens of that area, to ensure that we're doing it responsibly.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Elliott. I don't see any more questions. You've kind of come to the end of your 20 minutes. Thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been very informative. We appreciate it.
You bet. It was a pleasure to be here with all of you. And Kathy, I'll see you out on the trail.